Hello, and welcome to a podcast where we hope to teach you and talk to you about everything Minneapolis Public Schools. My name is Heather. I have the privilege of working with an organization called the Advancing Equity Coalition. Since I was a very young parent in Minneapolis Public Schools, I personally have been incredibly interested in the school board meetings, what happens in them, the future, the forecast. I love it. But I recognize not everyone does. And not everyone has the time to go sit for meetings. So I'm hopeful that us taking the time to share what happened at the meeting, maybe talk a little bit about the context in this format and a podcast where you can listen in your car, on your way to work, while you're having coffee. Maybe you'll feel more informed about what's happening in your child's school and in our city. So hopefully we'll be able to express that and kind of expand the interest and the love for school board meetings. Now, on the meeting for this last week, which was Tuesday, it was a committee of the whole meeting. A committee of the whole meeting is a meeting in which the cabinet or the superintendent, by the way, the cabinet, that's the group of people that kind of works closest to the superintendent. So it'd be someone like an associate superintendent, a head of academics, the head of buildings and safety, the head of transportation, the head of money. All those folks are going to be sitting around a table with the school board, and they're going to be presenting on a very specific topic that either the school board or maybe the time of year dictates. So during this committee of the whole meeting, they were really talking about this problem that's coming up for Minneapolis Public Schools, which is that we have this money called ESSER money. It's basically COVID relief money that the federal government gave out to all school districts, and it's a 3-year funding cycle. So that means in September of 2024, this money has to be spent or given back to the district. Now, for our district, and by the way, this is not an uncommon problem, many urban districts are sort of seeing shrinking enrollment and cost rise, right? So that's a pretty common problem, but our district has really been using this money to sort of shore up our budget shortages for the last few years. And now that's going to go away. So the cabinet and the school board, they were really talking about what is the vision. So the school board presented the district with like a strategic plan. They were like, hey, we know you have to do all kinds of things, but there are 5 things we really want you to work on. And we want you to prioritize those. So in this week's school board meeting, the cabinet was saying, this is how much that costs. This is how much it costs to do it, sort of. This is how much we think it costs to do it with fidelity. And so you need to make a choice. And what I really observed in the meeting was like, while many school board members had good questions and there was a lot of different conversations, kind of swirling around, talking about different topics, I haven't really seen this school board in particular say like, is this strategic plan so much our values that when it comes time to like think about what we're going to cut, we know exactly where we're going to cut or we're willing to look at it. And while the cabinet was sort of saying like, here are some scenarios or some things you could ask us to look at, I think that we left that meeting without a real sense of, okay, so now what are next steps? The closest we got to it was Director Abdi sort of asking for like a footprint or a feasibility or like kind of where does everybody go? How many buildings do we have versus how many students? But that was kind of it. And so the other kind of interesting thing that they talked about, which I didn't know a lot about until a few years ago, and I think it's pretty interesting, is that every school district has like a capital plan, right? Have you ever walked by your neighborhood elementary school and maybe you're like, wow, why are they doing that addition on it now when their enrollment's gone down? Or 2 years ago, they were building up that building and now that school is closed. That doesn't make any sense. Why did they dump all that money into that just to close? Or even, more interesting is like, wait, we're saying we can't afford teachers, but we're building this addition on this building? Well, I think that it's really interesting to think about. So in a school district, the capital plan is really separate dollars from the school budget. The capital plan will typically come from the tax dollars. And so you're going to see that is in the form of a levy, like a technology levy or a building levy. And that base and that money goes into a 10-year capital plan that our district then supplies to the Minnesota Department of Education. And that's the 10-year plan. So when you're seeing construction happen, chances are that construction was bid out and planned 5 years, 3 years, 6 years ago. And so, really this board has the responsibility of not only thinking about that, like tension of that COVID money going away, but also really thinking about what are these buildings going to look like? Are we going to change the way we teach? We've had COVID, we've done virtual learning. Do school buildings still have the same needs? One thing that I was really interested in was that the student representative talked a lot about needing more spaces for like settling down, for her nervous system to relax, for a little bit of, kind of like nervous system readjustment. And, that brought up a concept like, do we need, more of that in our buildings? Do we need spaces to look different? Do we need different lighting? And so I think these are questions that our school board really has to wrestle with. And I would say my challenge or my question and wondering to the school board would be, how are the group of them, each of whom came in to run for school board for a very specific reason, right? I might have run for school board because I cared more about one item than another. And now the thing is that their job is to govern this whole district. How are they going to think about our whole district as a thing? And then really start to think about what are we going to value the most? And with that, how are we going to cut other things? It's going to be an interesting couple of school boards to watch over the next few months, since we know that sort of that first round of budgets will be coming up in February. So stay tuned as we talk more about Minneapolis Public Schools, its strengths, its weaknesses, the amazing humans inside of it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk soon. Bye.